Move it, troopers! On the double! Fire!
Hello guys, we are the Scoundrel's Cantina. Our names are Luke and Todd. In this video, we'll be taking over for Fact 3, and just before we start, we want to thank him for this awesome collaboration. This video is about the top 10 most unique Star Wars vehicles, and the list of vehicles will be ranked by their design and their features. Keep in mind that this is solely based on our opinions, so it's completely fine if you don't agree. Also, we're mixing the expanded universe and canon like in all our other Star Wars videos. Now Todd's gonna step in, and you guys just sit back and enjoy the ride. At number 10, we have the heavily modified YT-2400 light freighter, which is also known as the Outrider. The Outrider was used by the brash smuggler Dash Rendar. Rendar held that his ship was almost as well known as the Millennium Falcon. One of the first modifications Dash made was to replace the original engines with 3 military-grade ion engines, but the main modification to the ship was the hyperdrive, giving the Outrider a Class 0.7 high hyperdrive rating, making it almost as fast as the Millennium Falcon. It also had a backup hyperdrive with a Class 10 rating. When Rendar could not avoid combat, the Outrider was more than capable of holding its own. It was equipped with dorsal and ventral turrets and a pair of forward-firing concussion missile launchers built into the cockpit's tube. The Outrider was a gift to Dash Rendar from a Twi'lek crime boss, and the ship served primarily for smuggling. It was in Mos Eisley shortly before the Battle of Yavin and was present during the Battle of Hoth. Dash continued to fly the Outrider in service to the Rebel Alliance after the Battle of Hoth. During the conflict of the Black Sun over Coruscant, the Outrider appeared to be destroyed by debris, but Dash simply went into lightspeed to fake his own death to distance himself from the further involvement with the rebellion. At number 9, we have an old smuggler ship called the Ebon Hawk. The Ebon Hawk was a dynamic-class freighter and a smuggler ship that rose to fame due to its use around the time of the Jedi Civil War, which was around 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. At that time, dynamic-class freighters were very rarely seen, making the Ebon Hawk even more unique due to its unstoppable speed. It was well known throughout the galaxy as a ship associated with the Exchanged, and it passed through many hands before it was commandeered by Revan, who was escaping the destruction of Taurus. After Revan joined the Order, the ship was instrumental in his search for the Starforge. Years later, the Hawk fell into the hands of the Jedi exile, Mitra Surik, who used it on her quest to stop the Sith Triumvirate. The ship was heavily modified over the course of its life, to the point where it was difficult to determine its origins. With its extremely powerful hyperdrive, the ship was believed to be one of the top 10 fastest ships in the galaxy during its time. The standard dynamic-class freighters had a Class 3.0 hyperdrive rating, which makes the Ebon Hawk have at least 2.0 by our educated guess. In number 8, we have the Subjugator-class heavy cruiser, which was named the Malevolence. It was the only one of its kind, and it was classified as a Star Dreadnought. It was 4,845 meters long, and was equipped with 500 turbo lasers. The most powerful weapons it possessed were the 2 ion cannons located on both sides of the ship, which could disable the power systems of entire fleets, rendering them defenseless against the ship's lasers. The Malevolence was mostly used by General Grievous and Count Dooku during the Clone Wars. Its glory was short-lived when a squadron of Y-Wing bombers led by Anakin Skywalker destroyed the ion cannon, saving a Republic medical station. The Malevolence was eventually destroyed when Jedi General Anakin Skywalker reprogrammed the ship's Navi computer, causing it to crash into a moon. In number 7, we have the modified VCX-100 light freighter, but more famously known as the Ghost. The Ghost was originally made by the Corellian Engineering Corporation. It was named by Hera for her ability to evade Imperial sensors. The ship was used during the early days of the rebellion and fought on numerous occasions against the Galactic Empire. The ship had a nose turret gunner station underneath the cockpit section with a dedicated gunner seat and a 360-degree dorsal laser cannon turret midships. Behind the cockpit was the crew quarters, consisting of 4 private rooms, and by the engine arrays were the 2 rear-facing main cargo holds. The Ghost also had 2 forward-facing cargo holds that constituted its front corners. The Ghost had engines which were baffled, energy dampers, and static jammers to make it hard to detect. These features and over 87 illegal upgrades to the Ghost's stealth systems allow the freighter to mimic solar fluctuations or cosmic radiation on many sensors. On the roof of the ship, in the back, rested a small attack shuttle called the Phantom, which doubled as both a starfighter and a shuttle. At number 6, we have Captain Rex's, Commander Wolf's, and Commander Gregor's heavily upgraded ATTE Walker. This vehicle is one of the most modified vehicles in all of Star Wars. Originally, it was a standard ATTE Walker which fought during the Clone Wars. After the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Galactic Empire, there were a lot of leftover and outdated Republic vehicles which have been replaced by newer, more advanced Imperial ones. This Walker was one of them, and at some point, Rex, Wolf, and Gregor scavenged it and heavily modified it to their own purposes. The Walker was referred to as a work of art by Sabine Wren, and it was painted in all sorts of different colors. It had one rusty leg, a built-in cabin with everything a home should have, a landing platform top, cranes on both sides, a fishing pole attached to the main gun for hunting, platforms on the sides, and many other modifications. The modified Walker was capable of standing up to 3 Imperial AT-AT Walkers and winning, but barely. At number 5, we have the modified YT-1300 light freighter, which was most famously known as the Millennium Falcon. It was manufactured 60 years before the Battle of Yavin by the Corellian Engineering Corporation. Before it was known as the Millennium Falcon, it was called by many names, some of which are Corell's Pride, Fickle Flyer, Jackpot, Hardwired, Wayward Son, Stellar's Envoy, and the Second Chance. The Millennium Falcon was most famously owned by Han Solo and Chewbacca, but before that, it was Lando Calrissian's. The Falcon was present during the Battle of Yavin and the destruction of the first Death Star. It continued to serve the Rebel Alliance, and a few years later was yet again part of another Death Star destruction at the Battle of Endor. Despite looking like a piece of junk on the outside, the Falcon was heavily modified to be one of the fastest ships in the galaxy and well suited for the life of a smuggler. The most famous attribute to the Millennium Falcon was her hyperdrive. It was twice the size of a standard YT-1300 freighter and gave the hyperdrive a class of 0.5, which was twice as fast than most Imperial warships. At number 4, we have the Rogue Shadow. The Rogue Shadow was a unique starship that served as a personal transport of Starkiller, the secret apprentice of the Sith Lord, Darth Vader. Built primarily for stealth and infiltration purposes, the Rogue Shadow incorporated state-of-the-art cloaking technology and a highly advanced hyperdrive engine in its design, thus allowing the apprentice to travel anywhere throughout the galaxy without risking detection. When they say that the Millennium Falcon is one of the fastest ships in the entire galaxy, they mean that the Rogue Shadow is one of the others, because it has the same class hyperdrive, which was 0.5. The ship also had cutting-edge sensor arrays, a fully functional medical bay, crew quarters, a workshop, and a meditation chamber that could double as a training room. Built by Scianar Fleet Systems, the Rogue Shadow's design was based on the Skimitar, Darth Maul's Sith infiltrator. It also shared certain design elements with the other Imperial craft, such as the Eta II Interceptor and the starfighters of the TIE series. After Starkiller's death, the Rogue Shadow was left to Ram Koda, who heavily modified it to better suit its role as a rebel transport and house Koda's squad. At number 3, we have the Firespray 31 attack and patrol craft, or in other words, Jango and Boba's Slave 1. The Slave 1 was originally a prototype police vehicle which was used on the asteroid prison OVO 4. There were only 6 Firesprays ever built in the entire galaxy, and infamous bounty hunter Jango Fett stole one of the 6 prototypes during a prison riot on the asteroid and launched 2 missiles into the hangar bay where the other 5 were kept, thus destroying them. Jango renamed the only remaining Firespray as the Slave 1 and used it up until his death, which was then passed on to his son Boba Fett, who also used it throughout his bounty hunting career. Unlike most starships, the Slave 1 sits flat on its bottom surface when idle and rotates 90 degrees to fly vertically. The original prototype was a well-armed starship which included 2 heavy twin blaster cannons, 2 rapid laser cannons, projectile launchers, homing missiles, and seismic chargers. The ship underwent heavy modification which included a cloaking device, proton torpedoes, upgraded Kua drive engines, and a stolen sensor masking and jamming array. The design of the Firespray 31 resembles the D5 Mantis from the Old Republic in many ways. At number 2 we have the Conqueror, which was an Imperial-class Star Destroyer. Why is this part of the list? Well, because it's a heavily modified Star Destroyer outfitted with a very powerful super laser that resembled the super laser on the Death Star. The Conqueror was created after the destruction of the first Death Star and was supposed to act as a replacement for the destroyed battle station. The Conqueror's super laser was capable of destroying small moons and continents and planets. Before the heavily modified Star Destroyer got the chance to exact some punishment, it was destroyed by a Renegade Squadron. There was another Star Destroyer with a super laser named the Twilight, which was created before the Conqueror as a prototype. It was capable of destroying large asteroids. Okay guys, so just before I reveal the number 1 on this list, I'm gonna let the other Scoundrel do the honorable mentions. First of the honorable mentions is gonna be the D5 Mantis attack and patrol craft from the Old Republic. Next off is the Eclipse-class Super Star Destroyer. Third spot of the honorable mentions is Kyle Katarn's Moldy Crow. The 4th honorable mention is a Sith Dreadnought armed with a hyperspace super laser called the Gauntlet. Fifth place goes to Anakin Skywalker's modified Delta 7 starfighter called the Azure Angel. Next off, we have the Delta Eta hybrid, briefly seen in the Clone Wars TV series. And last of the honorable mentions, we have Anakin's piece of junk, the Twilight.
And finally at number 1, we have the Yuuzhan Vong world ships, or in other words known as Chorus Strana. These ships were immensely large, organically created vessels that housed entire communities of Yuuzhan Vong, providing them with food and shelter. They also served as a strategic ground for long battles. Like all other Yuuzhan Vong vehicles and vessels, the Chorus Strana, or world ship, was made of Yorick coral. A world ship had more in common with a planet than a starship, and like most other Yuuzhan Vong bioengineered vessels, it did not appear to be a starship at all. Its length and width was 100 kilometers, making it the biggest ship in all of Star Wars. Its main body was a disc-shaped bulk, littered with hundreds of weapons and other protrusions, and on the edges of the world ship were several large spiral arms, causing the ship to resemble a galaxy. The spiral arms acted as a solar sail when traveling through space. A Yuuzhan Vong world ship lived for an average of 500 years or more. When a world ship started to near the end of its life cycle, it would grow myogens in its corridors, which were genetic mutations caused by old age. The biggest and oldest world ship was called Banu Ras, and it was 120 by 120 kilometers, almost the size of the first Death Star.
This is it on the top 10 list. I hope you had a great time watching this video, and if you haven't subscribed to Fact Free, make sure you do, because he has a lot of awesome content. If you like this video, be sure to also check out our channel for more videos like this one, where we explore the vast galaxy of Star Wars. And remember guys,
may the Force be with you always, and join the dark side, you rebel scum.
This party's over.